Hello friends, it's Kristie Marcotte. I am sharing some cards I made using Pink & Main's very first monthly subscription box. Sales for the kit started on February 23rd and kits will begin shipping on March 15th. As with most monthly kits, there are a limited number available, so if you are interested, be sure not to wait before the kits sell out. I have a link in the description box for purchasing the kits, along with my unboxing video showing everything that is included. The March theme is It's a Party. The paper collection and stamp set are perfect for a variety of celebration cards. So let's get started with card number 1. I'm using Sweet Sunday sketch number 295. For the background of the card, I used some of this light gray cardstock that is included in the kit, and then just a small piece of the pattern paper. And this is a nice, fun, bright pattern paper with all of the different colors. And then also included in the kit are these 5 different colored cardstocks. So there's actually 6, including this light gray. So I just cut a real thin strip from each of the colors, and then I'm using them just as the sketch shows, putting them side by side, just leaving a little gap between each of them. And so then I'm using this Woohoo stamp. So this is one of the sentiments that's included in the set. So I've already gone ahead and stamped it. And I used one of Pink & Main's stitched circle dies for the sentiment, and then just used another circle die for the matted layer. And even though the kit does come with some cardstock, I did include several more pieces just for my craft room, since I love to add a lot of matted layers. So like this black cardstock, it's not included in the kit, it's just some that I already had in my craft room. So I just finished that off with some of the glossy dots, put a little strip of pattern paper on the inside, and I actually made 2 of this exact same card. Now moving on to the next set of cards. I used Operation Right Home sketch number 250. The background paper is this really pretty blue with sort of a paint splatter look on it. And then for the sentiment, I actually used some more of this pattern paper. It just says happy birthday all over it in different colors. Cut that out using a circle die, and then I'm just placing it on the edge of the card and just trimmed off the very end of it. And then I'm adding a banner across the side, and you can see there's a big cutout in the back of my matted layer. Well, that's where I used for this circle die matted layer. It's a great way if you're really low on certain color cardstocks. So now for all of these little circle elements that are on the sketch, I'm using the little balloon dies that are included in the kit. And one of them is more of an outline and the other 2 are solid. So I only cut one as the outline, and then I wanted to make all of the strings white. So I cut out some additional strings, and then I'm actually going to cut off the yellow string as well. So I'm just going to tuck those strings underneath the red and the green balloons. And then I'll go ahead and add that yellow one right on top. And rather than it be the outline, I'm actually going to fill it in with all of the extra little pieces from the die. So I'm just going to use some liquid adhesive and attach all of those. So we have my little bunch of balloons. And then instead of the string being on the side of the balloon, I did put it underneath just so they looked about the same. And then I always like to add just a little banner in the upper corner of my cards. And I used one of the stitch dies that's by Pink & Main. And then just a little extra embellishment. I'm using a few of the sequins in the kit. And I'm just attaching those with some really small glue dots. And that is the card all finished. And once again, I did make 2 of the same card. And now moving on to the next card design. So this is Freshly Made Sketches number 249. The background paper is this fun green pattern paper with a whole bunch of just little tiny polka dots all over it. And I'm just using some solid cardstock for that strip that goes across the bottom of the card. And then I'm going to add some of the solid green twine. So I'm just going to wrap it around 3 times, just attaching it on the back with some ATG. And then just to make sure it's going to stay in place, I'm using a small piece of Scor Tape. And then before I do any other embellishments, I'm going to just add a whole bunch of ATG tape. I want to make sure it's not going to fall off. And I'll put that on my card base. And now I'm going to start this really fun part of the card. So there's this vertical die that says Happy Birthday. Went ahead and cut that out just out of some plain blue cardstock. And then just using some white cardstock and some Versamark ink, I just put ink all over the whole piece. And then I pulled out the Wow Sparkling Glitter Embossing Powder and just covered up that whole thing. And you can see how sparkly this stuff really is. Then I'm just using my tweezers because it gets really hot. Just grabbed my heat gun and I'm just going to heat emboss that whole piece. And this stuff does get messy, so just a little warning, I did end up with little glitter pieces everywhere, and I'm sure I'm going to see them for weeks now. So once I get that all nice and covered, you can see there's I didn't get the little corners, but you're not going to see that anyway. So since I need to attach this onto some embossed glitter, I want to make sure it holds. So I'm putting some Scor Tape on the edge of the sentiment piece, and then all in between the letters, I'm just going to use some liquid glue. So once I get all of that covered, I can go ahead and put that panel right behind. And so now when you see the letters, you can just see all of that beautiful sparkle. And the die actually does have the little inside of the letter D and the A, but I decided to leave them off because you can still read what the words are, and it gave it that little extra sparkle. And so I'm going to attach this onto my card, and since it's going to go right over that ribbon, I don't want an extra little bump in the card. So I put some foam dimensional tape and then just left a gap where the ribbon will go. And so I'll just tie my little bow. And I always fuss with this just a little bit. And then one last thing, I'm just going to add a few of the glossy dots. And there is my card. And again, I did make 2. For my next set of cards, I chose Sweet Sunday sketch number 292. This is a sketch that I do tend to use quite often. It's a real nice one to pair up just 2 pattern papers. So for the background pattern paper, I try to choose something that's not super busy. So this crisscross pattern worked really well, and then I can pair that up with this really busy design in the center of the card. And then again, you see that cutout because I will be adding that scallop circle later. I just want to make sure I have enough of that color cardstock. So I used another one of the stitch circle dies from Pink and Main. And then I have the Cheers sentiment, and I just used my mini MISTI just to make sure I get a nice solid impression when I'm stamping. And then I'll just adhere that to the matted scallop circle. Place that on my card. And then I like to add those little banners, so I cut out a few more of the little stitched banners, this time in 2 different colors. And I'm just overlapping them slightly so you can still see them, but it adds just a little extra interest. And then just to add a little more detail around the sentiment, I cut out a few of these little stars and circles, and I'm just adding 3 of them, just a little extra decoration there. And that is my card. And now moving on to the next set of cards. And for those that are new to my channel, I do use a lot of card sketches, and most card sketches don't include measurements, so I figure those out myself for A2 size cards. If you're ever interested in those measurements, I do share all of that on my coordinating blog post, and that link is in the description box. So the sketch this time is MFT sketch number 419. So I decided with this lovely sequin mix that is included in the kit that I needed to make a shaker card. So I'm just using this triangle design paper for the background and then pairing it up with this really lovely, it's almost a glitter looking cardstock. And so now I'm going to build my little shaker window. So I use some of the foam dimensional tape, and I actually cut like a long piece. I fold it in half so that I have a double layer. And if you remove the backing off of both sides, you can manipulate it easily and you can go around a circle with it. So since I don't want the corners of this front window to sag at all, I'm also going to add just those little triangles in each of the corners. And so the background of the shaker is going to have the sentiment hey. So first I'm going to attach that sentiment piece, and then I like to add the sequins onto the card versus the little window. So first I put some little anti-static powder into the shaker window, and now I'm just going to spoon out some of these really lovely sequins. I'm going to kind of push them all in the center to make sure they don't get stuck underneath any of this foam dimension. And sorry, the camera goes out of focus a little bit here. So a couple of the sequins escaped because no matter what, you get a little bit of static on there. So then I just press that foam down nice and snug. And then I decided to add one of these lovely fabric bows to the upper corner. Then I just felt like that bottom corner needed just a little something, so I pulled out some of the Nuvo glitter drops. And that is my finished card. So this actually puts me up to 10 cards total so far. For my next set of cards, I used Sweet Sunday sketch number 288. For the background paper, I just used some of the green cardstock and cut it out using one of the rectangle stitch dies. And then just to add a little more detail, I'm just using one of the small stars that comes on the stamp set, and then just using some of the Versamark ink. So I'm just randomly stamping them all over the background, and I'm not going to emboss it. I'm just going to leave it just like that, where it adds just that real subtle detail. And then just to make sure it dries quickly, I just pulled out my heat gun and heat set that. And I'll just attach that piece to the blue cardstock. And again, you're going to see that little cutout in the background. This is something I do quite often. So I'm just trying to decide which I want to be the top and which on the bottom when I put my card front onto my card base. And so for this card, I just have that really small piece of pattern paper. So it's just that green polka dot paper again. And then the banner is just some more of the same blue cardstock. So then I cut out my little circle and then the little matted layer. And I'm going to use the Let's Party sentiment. And this time I'm going to emboss it using some more of the Wow sparkling embossing powder. So I do use my mini MISTI just to make sure I get a nice solid impression. And then I'll just sprinkle all of that embossing powder on to the sentiment, wiping away any of the little strays. And I'll pull out my heat gun. And since there is all of those little glitter pieces in there, I like to start beneath the sentiment first, just so it doesn't blow all those little pieces around. So once that's all dry and cool, I'll just attach that to that matted layer. And then most of my cards, I'm not adding a whole lot of extra dimension, just because I do donate so many cards. I like to leave off the dimension. So there are my cards. For my next set of cards, I'm using another favorite sketch. This is MFT sketch number 416. And I have been using this sketch a lot over the last few months. It's definitely one of my favorites. So I like that you can combine a few different pattern paper designs. Now for this card, both of the patterns are fairly busy, but by adding those matted cardstock layers, it helps break up some of that busyness. So below this main star pattern paper, there's this nice bar to put a sentiment. So the sentiment that I'm using is actually the little stamp set that comes with the welcome gift. Now I show that really quick. So it has a happy and then there's this larger hello. So I stamped that and then I used the matching die to cut that out. And I decided just to pop that one up just a little bit, just using some really thin foam dimensional tape. And then a little extra detail, I cut out a few of these little stars, just using some of the cardstock that is included. And then again, I like to add my little banner, so I used one of the stitched banner dies by Pink and Main, and then I just trimmed it down so it's just a real short banner. And there are my cards. The nice thing about having a full 6x6 paper pad in the kit is you can easily make duplicate cards. Now moving on to the next set of cards. I used Sketch Saturday number 523. So for the background on this card, this is some of the red cardstock that's included, and it's a fun paper because it's pre-embossed with all these little tiny polka dots. And then I just used one little strip of this wider striped paper just for the side of the card. And then I pulled out this really large sentiment from the stamp set, has best wishes. And I did already go ahead and stamp that. I wanted to make sure I had a real good impression, so I did use my mini MISTI again. And so now I wanted to use these little tiny candles that are included. So there's two different dies. One is solid and the other one has the little openings. So I'm going to have two blue candles, but on the little striped pieces, I want them to be white. So I put a small piece of Scor Tape on the back, and then I'm just inlaying all of those teeny tiny little pieces right back into that candle. And then I wanted the flame to be yellow instead of blue, because when you cut it out, it's all one piece. So I just cut one in yellow and one in blue, and then I just snipped off that little flame. And then when I'm adhering them to the card, I just glue them right back in place. I'm just going to put two of them kind of overlapping slightly right on the side where that one circle element is on the sketch. And then just for a final touch, I'm going to use some more of the little glossy dots. Put three of them in that upper corner. Then I decided to put three of them underneath the best wishes, just because it had a little bit extra white space there. Although I did do it slightly different on the second card, like this one. But there are my cards. Now on to the next set of cards. I used Operation Write Home sketch number 219. The nice thing about Operation Write Home sketches is they already include measurements. So they're always for A2 size cards, so if you make a different size, you would definitely have to adjust those slightly. So I'm going to start out by using two different pattern papers, and normally those wouldn't look very good placed next to each other, but by adding all of those layering pieces, that blue cardstock, it really helps break up all of that busyness. So then on top of this little white strip that goes across, I pulled out some of the green and white striped twine. And I'm just going to attach that right over, adhering it to the back with some ATG and some Scor Tape. And then before I go any further, I'm just going to put that card front onto a card base. Add my little pattern paper just to the inside of the card. And now I'm going to go ahead and stamp my sentiment. So I'm using the Let's Party, and I did purposely stamp it not centered because I'm going to add a little bit of embellishment on the right hand side of that. And then again, since it's going over that twine, I don't want it to be sagging or lopsided, so I'm going to add some of the foam dimensional tape and just put it right around that twine, leaving that little gap so that it's nice and even on the card. And I'll go ahead and kind of tie like a fake bow. So it's basically just a knot, and then I cut the ends and then I unfray the twine just to leave the little edges there. And so for my little embellishment, I cut out another one of the candles. This time I stayed with the solid. So just using some of the cardstock from the kit Just gluing that right on the side, and then I also used some really small stitched circles out of the blue cardstock and then just adding them on the left hand side. Then I decided since it's a flame it needed a little bit of sparkle. So I'm just using a little glitter pen to that, and that card is finished. And now moving on to my final set of cards. So this is Operation Write Home Sketch number 229. This is a great sketch for using up some of those small scraps that you may have left over from a paper pad. And it's also fun to combine a variety of different patterns together, since generally 6x6 paper pads, all of the papers coordinate together. So for just one of the circles, I kept it with just the solid cardstock, and that's where I stamped my sentiment. And this gray paper, this is so fun, the front and back pages of the paper pad actually have this gray pattern on there. So you can still use it instead of just having a wasted piece of paper. And then I did add this fun little bubble border die. So this is also by Pink & Main. Just on the edge to kind of break up that gray and the black cardstock. And then I used some black circles to mat all of those patterns and just kind of gluing them down randomly, trying to keep them nice and even though. So it's fun because you can still combine a lot of the different pattern papers together. And then just to finish off my card, I'm going to add a few of the glossy dots. Then I decided I needed just a little bit more to this sentiment. So I'm adding, just using a glitter pen, and then just to make it pop out just a little bit more, I decided to add some glossy accents over to fill in all the letters there. So once that dries, it adds just a little extra detail. So that is my final set of cards. So I did end up making a total of 20 cards. So here is just a quick recap of all of the 20 cards I made using Pink & Main's Crafty Courtyard March subscription box. So this kit did go on sale on February 23rd. If you are interested in purchasing the kit, I will have a link in the description box. This is Pink & Main's very first monthly kit box. It was a lot of fun, and I love the bright, cheerful colors. These cards will be perfect for masculine or feminine cards. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, and don't forget to hit the thumbs up. I always appreciate the support. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.